When it comes to prayer, it feels like there are these two huge opposing forces always at play: humility and pride. So today, we're going to break down the anatomy of prayer and really see how these two things can determine whether our words actually connect or if they just, echo back into the room.
I mean, have you ever felt that? It's a pretty universal feeling, isn't it? You pour your heart out, you say all the right things, but you're still left wondering, was anyone even listening? Well, the source material we're looking at today suggests the answer has way less to do with the specific words we pick and everything to do with the posture of our heart when we say them. All right, so let's dive into our first case study. This one comes from the book of Genesis, where we find Abraham in what's basically a high-stakes negotiation with God over the fate of an entire city. And his strategy? It's absolutely fascinating. So here's the setup. God tells Abraham, hey, I'm about to judge the city of Sodom. But what's really interesting here is that the source highlights the core problem wasn't just their bad actions. No, it was something deeper, a really profound pride and selfishness that caused them to completely ignore the poor and needy around them. Okay, this is the pivotal moment. Abraham decides he's got to step in to bargain for the city. But look at how he does it. He speaks so boldly, yet he kicks off his entire argument with this incredible statement of humility. He says he's nothing more than dust and ashes. I mean, what a powerful paradox, right? And that right there is our first big takeaway. Effective prayer isn't about being weak or passive. Abraham was bold, but, and this is key, his boldness was totally anchored in a deep, sincere humility. You could call it a respectful confidence. Now for our second case study. And this one is a real doozy. It's a powerful parable that Jesus told, and it was designed specifically to paint this unforgettable picture of two very different prayers, one that comes from pride and one that comes from humility. Just look at these two prayers side by side. The contrast is staggering. One is basically a resume of personal achievements and a whole lot of judgment. The other is just a simple, desperate cry for mercy. The words themselves tell you so much of the story. But let's go even deeper than the words and just look at their attitudes. You've got the Pharisee, who sees himself as righteous and looks down on literally everyone else. So, of course, his prayer is all about boasting. Then you have the publican, a tax collector. He feels so unworthy he can't even bring himself to look up to heaven. He just stands way off in the distance, completely focused on his own need for forgiveness. So here's the kicker. The Pharisee wasn't actually talking to God. He was talking at God. His prayer was a performance, a self-centered boast to remind God, and probably himself, just how good he was. It was all about self-exaltation. So, you've got two men who prayed, but only one of them was truly heard. Let's look at the verdict of this whole story, and more importantly, the why behind it. Jesus drops the bombshell. It was the publican, the humble tax collector, who went home justified. Now, that word is so important. It means he was acquitted, totally forgiven of his sins, and made right with God. The Pharisee, with all his boasting, he went home with nothing. And here it is, the universal principle, the moral of the whole story. Jesus lays out a kind of spiritual law. If you lift yourself up with pride, you're going to be brought low. But if you humble yourself, you will be lifted up. It's as simple as that. It's really like a spiritual law of gravity, when you think about it. The path of pride, of lifting yourself up, always leads down. But the path of humility, of recognizing your need, well, that's the only path that leads up. That's the core verdict of the entire parable. So, what do Abraham's boldness and the publican's simple plea really have in common? Let's try and tie this all together into one final principle that really governs the kind of confidence we can have when we pray. Okay, so this brings us to this idea of confidence in prayer. And it's really important we get this definition right. This isn't pride, it's more of an assurance, a boldness, a freedom to speak, just like we saw with Abraham. It's the confidence of a child who knows without a doubt they can run up to their father. But here's the thing, this confidence isn't a blank check. The source material points out there's a condition. Real, true assurance comes when we ask for things that line up with God's will, with his purpose, with his plan. And when you think about it, isn't that the ultimate act of humility? To shift the focus from what I want to what does God want? So let's wrap this all up. What have we learned? Well, first, humility is the absolute bedrock of a prayer life that actually connects. Second, that self-righteous kind of pride, it just builds a wall and our words can't get through.
And finally, real confidence in prayer isn't found in our own good deeds, but in humbly lining up our own desires with God's will. And all of that leaves us with one final question to chew on. As we look at our own prayers, what does it really, truly mean to shift from a performance of pride to a genuine posture of humility?